The first item that you're going to want to get is a self-healing cutting mat. So that's going to be what's below you on your work surface when you design. You'll notice a few things. It has these gridded lines, which are incredibly helpful for when you go to draw guidelines or measure things. It also can be cut into repetitively. For that reason, it allows your blades to last longer as well. And they come in a variety of widths. The next thing that you want to get is a bone folder. So I have 3 different options here. This one is made of actual bone. I believe it's from a cow's rib. If that's something that you are not interested in, they do sell vegan options, which are made of Teflon. You can get those from a company called Thales online. So this is like NASA space age developed material that nothing can stick to, which is incredibly helpful when you're using adhesives or things that are really sticky. The fact that this can just be kind of wiped clean is an advantage. You'll also notice throughout this tutorial that most of the tools I show are going to have my name on them. That's because I'm a member of a lot of collaborative spaces and lend out tools. And, if you have a bone folder and your neighbor has a bone folder, they're going to look exactly alike. It's going to be really hard to tell them apart. So if your studio is portable, meaning that you pack it up and move it around from place to place, you probably want to mark your tools. The Teflon, I don't think you can mark it because nothing sticks to it. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need a bone folder but you don't have one, you can use a spoon in a pinch. You want to get a bone folder that feels good in your hand, meaning that it feels like it can kind of nest here and you have like kind of nice pressure for this. In another video, I go over bone folder basics. The next category that we're going to talk about are things that are used to cut or mar the surfaces of things. So first up, we have scissors. So these are the 3 pairs of scissors that I use in my studio. I use this set for cutting thread or small paper cuts, detail work. This is kind of like my utility, like workhorse set of scissors. So this is what I use for kind of multi-purpose in my studio. And again, scissors should feel like they can fit in your hand pretty well. So that might be something that you want to test out when you go to buy a pair of scissors. And then lastly, the set of scissors I have in my studio are for fabric only. When you cut through paper with scissors, it dulls the blade incredibly fast. And that doesn't really work well for fabric. You need really sharp scissors to cut through fabric accurately. So if this is something that you think you're going to be working with fabric, this might be an investment to kind of work up towards. Next up, we have X-Acto blades and utility knives. So I really prefer these Olfa blades. I talk more in detail about them in a knife safety video that's on this channel. Also, you can get a utility knife. Those are really helpful for if you have to cut through mat board or cardboard or heavy material. This kind of thinner cutting device doesn't really cut it, to make a pun, but this is much better. Replacement blades are sold for those types of snap-off blades as well, and it does end up saving you money in the long term to purchase your blades this way. This is a rotary cutter. This can be really helpful, again, if you're working with fabric. It has a safety release on it and can cut. These are awls. They'll be incredibly helpful if you are binding books. So basically what they do is you punch them through paper and they make holes, and then you can use those holes to sew into. So you always want the diameter of your awl to be slightly thicker than your sewing needles. I'll hold these 2 next to each other so you can see. So I would use my awl to punch the holes first and then go back in with my sewing needle and sew. So because this awl is thicker, it makes it so that my sewing needle and my thread will be able to pass through those holes. Investing in some bookbinding sewing needles might be something that you find helpful as well. This is just a little case that I made that has magnets on it that the needles can attach to. And you'll see here I have a variety of straight needles and curved sewing needles. This is used for Coptic stitch. This is used for kind of a variety of stitches. This is the one that I tend to use the most. The next category are measuring and drafting tools. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are rulers. So this is probably what is most common to see, cork-backed ruler. There's also see-through rulers that might be very helpful for you as you're making stuff. The reason being is that you can see your content that's underneath as you're deciding what to crop, whereas metal rulers will kind of block all of that. There's also rulers called bar stock or architect's rule. So these are rulers that, rather than the measurements kind of going down like this, and that's how you measure, it's actually the width of the whole ruler that is that. So this is a 1/2 inch piece of bar stock or architect's rule. This is a 3/4 of an inch of bar stock or architect's rule. So I use this endlessly when I'm designing. If I'm trying to make a bunch of grid lines really fast that are all exactly 1/2 an inch apart, I'll use this and I'll just kind of like put it against one line, draw, move it 1/2 of an inch, draw, move it 1/2 of an inch, draw. It makes templates really easy, and I also use it for making jigs. Templates are something that's really great to have. Circle templates, oval, square. I also have a video where I go over how to make a thumbnail template from scratch. French curves are great for drawing. So you can kind of move it till you get to a place that you would like. So it's great for drawing fast curves. Paired with the rulers are marking devices. So I really suggest working with a pencil, either just a standard sharp pencil or a mechanical pencil, which I kind of prefer because I find it's just always sharp and it works well for me. You also want to get some black pens in a variety of widths. That will help when you're wanting to alternate line width as you're drawing. You also want to get some sort of white eraser. So I really like this. It's called a Mononoke, but there's others that are handheld erasers. It just allows me to get kind of more fine precision as I'm erasing things, especially if I'm working with like slight typographic elements that I need to go in and kind of rework an area. I find that this allows me to really get in there and work on it. If not, you can use any sort of white eraser that works as well, or even the eraser that comes on the back of a pencil like this. Although what I find sometimes is that this pink will actually stain your paper, which is not ideal. You also might want to invest in tools that allow you to measure angles. You might have certain designs that you're working on that you have to draw something at a 70-degree angle, and tools like this allow you to get that accurate measurement. Tape or things that glue things together are incredibly helpful. Yoo-hoo glue sticks tend to be a great tool and are very archival and last pretty long. You can also get blue tape at a variety of widths. This is probably a good one as you get started. This is 1 inch thick, but there might be different purposes for masking kind of as you go, but this is a great starting place. And you can think of this as like a way to like temporarily hold things in place while you're working. These are 2 different types of double-sided tape. This one is inside of a holder that disposes it. And this is backed with, some are backed with paper, some are backed with plastic, but double-sided tape that's backed. So if you're using this Tomboy Mono, the way that you use it is you press down like this and pull. You can do curved lines, straight lines, but a line of adhesive will be put there for you. You can fold in half. The way that this works is you can pull some out, cut off the amount that you want to use, put it on your paper. You can either burnish it with your finger or a bone folder. and then you have a piece of tape. Color is a big part of a designer's toolkit. There are pocket color wheels. You can certainly just print out an 8.5 by 11 example color wheel on a printer and use that as well, or anything that kind of acts as a reference for you as you're getting started with color. Especially when you're color mixing, it can be helpful to kind of have an example guide to go by. I don't think you need your own Pantone book, but you want to have access to a Pantone book, either through a friend or maybe a design center or print center. So this is a way that universally color is agreed upon. Say you're trying to color match something, this would act as a guidebook for you. It also, some Pantone books give the recipe of how that color is made. So here we see that this Pantone color is made of processed blue, 31 parts, Rubine red, 14 parts, 1 part black, and then 53.14 parts transparent white. So you'll notice this in a lot of the Pantone colors that transparent white is in almost every single recipe. Gouache is another system of mixing color and making swatches or sample colors. So you can look for sets of gouache that are sold like this. Binder clips can be a really helpful tool. I use them a few different ways. One is when I'm making mock-ups for motion graphics, I'll take a thin stack of paper, this is around like 50 or 70 sheets, and start to map out some of my frames. So this is really helpful at holding the book together. Another way I use binder clips is to hold together swatches or to help myself get organized. So these are some book cloth samples, some color palettes I was working on. So if I'm meaning to have these grouped together, then this binder clip will allow me to do so. Most of you will likely have a laptop and charger. You also want to invest in a mouse, either a wireless mouse or a wired mouse. But that will really help save your wrist while you're working, especially if you're doing lots of vector artwork or small detail work. You really don't want to be doing that on a trackpad. Sharpies, although the smell can be kind of offensive, are a great thing to have in your studio because they're a permanent marker, which means that you can draw on items like plastic and it will stay there. So that's not the case with most design drawing tools. Prismacolor markers are also a great addition when figuring out color. The thing I really like about them is they pretty accurately simulate overprint, which means if I draw this orange area and let it dry, and then I come over here and draw another color on top of it, I get a pretty accurate representation of what it looks like when those two colors overprint. And that's helpful when I'm designing because you might have, say, two graphics that meet each other and overlap and make this third blended color. So you can see what that looks like on a computer, but sometimes it's really helpful to just see it quickly with a marker. And then these are double pointed mostly. So you either end up with a fine tip or a brush tip, and on the other end is typically a chiseled tip.